Your Excellency, Mr. Getachew Radda, Advisor to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia on East African Affairs, Your Excellency, Nicholas Ladnov, Director General for Anwar Gargash Diplomatic Academy, Dr. Ibtisam Altanaj, Deputy Director General, Ambassadors, distinguished guests, all protocols observed. Good evening and welcome to Addis Ababa. This dialogue carries the name of a place, Hili. Some of you know it. For those who don't, Hili is a site in Al Ain in the UAE. It is more than 4,000 years old and it was built around two things. The first was water. Its people cut a channel, a fallage, to carry water underground across distance from far off sources to the ground where life actually happened. They moved things that sustained life to where it was needed. The second was trade. We know this from what came out of the soil there from Mesopotamia, beads carried from Indus Valley, a settlement in the desert tied by caravan and by sea to civilizations 1,000 miles away. When Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, the founding father of the UAE, invited foreign archaeologists to dig at Hili, he did not ask them to carry anything out of the country. He asked them to help his people understand what was already theirs. That's not a bad name for a conversation between Ethiopia, Africa, and the UAE. A place defined by carrying what mattered across distances by connection that was never built to run in one direction only. Excellencies, we begin in a hopeful place. The United Arab Emirates is today the Gulf's leading investor on our continent. Across ports, logistics, energy, food security, and critical minerals. A strong foundation built in good faith on both sides. And the people who designed this forum wrote one honest line into its concept note that I wanted to say out loud from this podium. That I quote, despite strong foundations, the relationship remains far from what it could be. I read that as a mark of seriousness and an invitation to build on what we have and imagine what it could be, what it still could be. Dear friends, we are meeting in a fractured moment. The old rules are wearing thin and the temptation everywhere is to measure a partnership by what gets announced, the deals signed, the photographs taken. But announcements are weather. They turn with the season. As a researcher, not as a host, not only as a host, let me put the real question plainly. What we are here to test over these 2 days is something slower and far more tiring. Whether two regions can build arrangements still standing after the weather turns, and whether African states arrive at the table as partners who set their own terms, rather than being a quarry for other people's supply chain. Dear friends, of course this happened yesterday, I prepared this. We did an MOU with the Anwar Gargash Diplomatic Academy as a show of our deeply engaging partnership. To take the MOU or to treat our signed MOU between Anwar Gargash and our institute, the Institute of Foreign Affairs, as a formality would be a mistake, I think. I would ask you to treat it as a beginning of a partnership, that two research institutions, one an Emirati, one an Ethiopian, agreeing to think alongside each other is not a footnote to this dialogue. It is the fundamental argument of this dialogue. It is, as the metaphor stated, it's a fallage, the quiet and glamorous channel that keeps carrying something useful long after the opening night is over. The Institute of Foreign Affairs exists for exactly this: rigorous research and honest counseling to those who make decisions. We meant to be among the 5 leading think tanks in foreign affairs research, training, and consulting in Africa by 2032. Events like this are how we realize those ambitions. Over the next course of hours, 4 sessions will take place, from trade to ports and connectivity to critical minerals and new technology, to agriculture and clean energy. Different subjects, one question beneath them: how do we turn what we build together into a shared value both regions can point a decade from now? Excellencies, dear participants, a thought once again about Hili before I finish my speech. The channel those people dug did not keep working on its own. A fallage carries water only as long as someone in every generation keeps it clean and clear. Thus the work ahead of us, patient and shared long after the lights here in this room goes out. Many thanks to our partners at the ECSSR and AGDA, the Anwar Gargash Diplomatic Academy, for building this with the Institute of Foreign Affairs. To all the ambassadors and higher officials here, and for their contributions that will come ahead. Above all, to the teams on both sides, from the UAE side and here in Ethiopia, whose work over many months made this dialogue reality. To everyone who traveled here, you are welcome and you are needed in the conversations, not only in the room. Welcome to Addis Ababa, welcome to Hili Dialogue. I thank you.
To all my Ethiopian friends today, and Nacho, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Addis Ababa today for the 2nd regional edition of Hili Dialogue, at the first to be held in Africa under the theme Advancing Shared Futures. I would like to thank the Ethiopian Institute of Foreign Affairs, Anwar Gargash Academy, and the Emirates Center of Strategic Studies and Research, and all partners who contributed to making this dialogue possible. The UAE's engagement with Africa, founded on a simple principle: sustainable partnership, are built through long-term investment, shared interest, and local priorities, whether in trade, infrastructure, agriculture, clean energy. Our objective is not only to support growth, but help build the opportunity. Over the past decades, trade between the UAE and Africa countries has grown a lot, reflecting stronger economic ties and growing opportunities, as seen in the deep friendship between the leaders of 2 countries, UAE and Ethiopia. To support this progress, the UAE has invested in ports, logistics, and infrastructure that help connect Africa business to regional and global markets. In agriculture and food security, Emirati investments are helping increase productivity and support sustainable development. In renewable energy, the UAE has invested in solar, wind, and hydropower projects across the continent. The UAE is also investing in Africa Digital Future through initiatives in artificial intelligence, AI, and skill developments. We are working with these partners across the continent to support innovation and future growth. As we look ahead, the focus should be on how we build on this progress, which sectors offers the greatest opportunities for cooperation, and what practical steps can we take together to turn these opportunities into real results. To conclude, I encourage all today, researchers and investors, to use this dialogue in a practical platform for exchanging ideas and building partnerships that can deliver real impact. I look forward to our discussions and the outcomes that will emerge from it. Thank you. Amesi Ganalo.
My thanks to the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, to the Anwar Gargash Diplomatic Academy, to the Institute of Foreign Affairs here in Addis Ababa for this invitation and for building the Hili Forum into a serious conversation. Excellencies, Director General Al-Nuami, Director General Mladenov, Executive Director Bedru, Director General Aweke, thank you very much. And all excellencies in the audience, all courtesies observed, distinguished participants, and of course my fellow speaker, Mr. Rashed Al-Shehhi Shajeh of the UAE in Ethiopia. I am sorry to be with you by screen rather than there in the room with you in Addis Ababa, but I am still very grateful for the opportunity to participate this morning. I want to start my brief address by looking back a few decades. In 1945, with the end of World War II, the institutions, the global institutions that were established essentially to manage coexistence. Their design was to prevent World War III. And while the Cold War was a very tough period for Africa and the Gulf, the major powers of the day did not go to war. The end of that Cold War in the 1989, 1990, ushered in an age of unprecedented power where the United States and the West at large and their standard on how to organize politics and economics reigned supreme. That moment is now over. But we're not in a wilderness. I believe we are resetting to coexistence. However, while change is at hand, many of the global institutions still speak and act on the assumption of the last 3 decades that that history has a single direction and that every society is traveling towards the same destination. And these institutions were built to have evolved to try and manage that journey. Within the dialogue that's produced by convergence, Africa was told to wait its turn to converge. However, as I've said, we have returned to an age of coexistence, a world where many centers that will not necessarily agree on the destination have to cooperate anyway. I believe that a confident middle power, such as the UAE, and a rising continent of Africa are no longer at the periphery of anyone else's order. They are central actors who must depend on their own abilities and resources to find a way to the destination they dream of. Now, that's basically to say we do not need to be like one another to build ports, processing plants, or power lines, or to build peace. What we need is a common interest and the habit of keeping our word. The UAE and Africa are very well suited to that. Neither is asking the other to become something else. And I want to become precise about what kind of partnership I believe we should be discussing at this moment. Africa holds much of what the global economy needs with the greatest urgency: the minerals, the energy, and the largest young workforce in the world. Its path can involve capital coming in to take the resources and leaving without the African people feeling the positive impact of the investments, which is really the oldest story on the continent at the moment. Or capital can come and become the base on which Africans build their work and their income at home. I have come to call the second outcome developmental sovereignty. And I would ask both sides to treat it as the test of everything we do together. The test is one question. After the deal is signed, is the African state and its people more capable than before or less so? This is not only about economics. The African state is still a young construction, building legitimacy on the ground that the empires that ruled it left in bad shape. Whether Africa, the state, can stand, whether the young people can see a future at home rather than going abroad, these are the questions on which the state itself stands or falls. Economics and business are therefore not a side department of the African project. They are near the center of it. A partner who strengthens the state, a partner who hollows out a country for a single resource weakens the very order we all say that we want. For the last 2 generations or so, the development conversation has run on aid, on transfers from the OECD economies that were meant to close a gap. That order is finished. The aid budgets are shrinking, the political support for them is weakening, and even at their height, those transfers were a supplement, not an engine. What builds a modern state is business. It is firms that hire, invest, pay tax, and compound. And the jobs they create are what give a young African a stake in the country and a government, a budget to govern with. The UAE comes to Africa as an investor and a builder, not primarily as a donor. And that is the relationship that Africa needs. The future of the African economy is commercial, not charitable. And here is the good news, and I think it is genuinely new. Capital is no longer the scarce thing. The world is full of capital, and the UAE holds a great deal of it. The thing that is scarce is a capacity of a place to take capital and return the growth that lasts. And I call that simply investability, which rests on trust, on capability, and on predictability. As you know, capital follows confidence and not need. So the real work in front of us is to build investability inside African economies and make that a resource that creates jobs and a blessing. The wrong kind of partnership is familiar. It builds an enclave with its own road, its own port, and its own power, sealed off from the country around it, and it calls the export figure development. The country ends poorer in everything except a profit line on someone else's balance sheet. We have seen it for many years, and we should say plainly that it is not to be repeated. This is why I take the UAE very seriously as a partner. The UAE faced this exact problem and solved it for itself. In one working lifetime, it turned an endowment in the ground into an economy the world wants to invest in logistics that move the world's goods, in finance, in clean energy. It chose to lead rather than follow. And what the UAE did, the decisions it made, is the kind of decisions Africa needs to make. A country that has made itself investable can help another country to do the same. The capital is always welcome, but the know-how to build investability is the real prize. The 4 sessions later today will put a lot of color and content into some of these words that I am laying out this morning. The question will be in trade, whether African producers move up the value chain and whether this partnership strengthens the African continental free trade area. In ports, whether the infrastructure carries African production out of the world or carries the world in across Africa without benefit to the African people. In minerals and technology, whether the processing and the skills will grow at home in Africa. In agriculture and energy, whether Africans eat and power their own lives first. This is really the vision we have to have. And I believe it is a vision that we share with the UAE. It is only a question of thinking better how to implement it. Some of the ground we share is at war or very close to it. In the Horn and around the Red Sea. In those places, prosperity and peace are a single project. Money that arrives without a political settlement cannot sustainably get to profit. And a peace settlement that arrives without investment is only a delay before the next round of war. Where the UAE and African states find themselves in these theaters of war is that we should let mediation and investment move together. As the governments mediate peace, the business people must be organized so that they're able to enter that peace in a stable way as they expect and to create hope and opportunity that allows war to be held at bay. A population with a stake in the peace is the most durable security there is, and it guards your capital better than any contract can. There is a simple measure for a partnership in the age of coexistence we have returned to. It's for our partnerships to leave us stronger and more sovereign than we were before we built them up. If we hold to that, then this Hili dialogue will indeed be the basis of changing both the UAE and African countries in conversation. And it will become a working model of how a multipolar world can build something better than a scramble for resources that leaves Africans or Emiratis worse off as citizens. I believe Africa is ready to build it with the UAE on those terms, and I want to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to participate.